Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Victoria Martinson, Director of Alumni and Constituent Engagement here at Western Washington University. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to our October virtual studio tour. I'm joined here today by our moderator, Chris Cusquillo, who is the Manager of Marketing and Special Events for the College of Fine and Performing Arts, and our featured artist, AJ Barse. We will be taking a behind the scenes look at AJ's work and his studio and what inspires him. A bit of housekeeping before I hand it over to Chris and AJ. Please use the Q&A feature to ask any questions you might have. We will make sure to answer them throughout the conversation. Also, use the chat feature freely to share your thoughts, inspirations, and suggestions. And I'll ask Chris to join us now, as well as AJ.
Uh-oh, I can't get my video to start. The host has stopped it. Oh no. Hey, there we go. That's me.
Great. Welcome, guys. It's so glad to have you here today. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Chris and AJ.
It's good to be here today. How are you, AJ?
I'm doing well, Chris. Long time no see.
I'm glad to hear it. I had a question. I know we talked a little bit this week off and on while we were getting ready to set up, but something that just kind of popped into my head while I was looking at the opening slide. Where did you go to college?
Well, first my college career started at Olympic College in Bremerton. Shout out to all my peeps in Kitsap. And then I did my undergraduate studies with Western, the extension campus over there in Kitsap through Woodring. And then I came up here to Bellingham and did my master's in adult and higher education here at Western.
Wow.
So,
well, that's terrific. Yeah, I was looking at the alumni slide and I was like, oh wait, I think he's an alum of Western. So that's really great. That's really great. I just wanted to kick things off with that first video. I don't know if we have it ready already, but just to get everybody warmed up and looking at some of your work, that's really great. So I know Stephanie will let me know when we're ready to do that. So in the meantime, though, what gets you out of bed in the morning as a photographer? What gets you motivated to go out and see the world there?
Coffee. You said get me out of bed.
Yeah.
To kind of get started, I guess my main focus in photography, to kind of harp on my geek roots, I'm going to quote my favorite fictional philosopher, the Doctor of Doctor Who. We're all just stories in the end, so make mine a good one. You know, whenever I look at photography, I see it as photographers, we're the original Time Lords, as I like to say. We get to bear witness to a moment in time. Hopefully we have something that we can capture it. Mm-hmm. And then more importantly, because we bore witness to it, we get to pass on that story. You know, it's not just about the photograph itself, but like everything that was there, the smell in the air, the feeling, the vibe, you know, that all goes in. And I look forward to doing that. You know, it's not just about, you know, running and gunning and taking a whole bunch of photos. Like for me, it's picking my shots.
Right. Well, I was going to say the next question that you made me think of there was, you know, obviously with digital storage and very large storage cards and things like that, you know, you can take lots and lots and lots of pictures, but do you find that you spend a lot of time composing a shot and you know, carefully framing it and then maybe get some coverage of the shot, but what's your composition approach like?
Well, one, be well caffeinated. Two, just be out and about. A lot of what I do, I'm not much of a studio photographer these days. I find working in a studio, I mean, fun as it is, having all this expensive equipment and lights and ultimate control of the world around you. That's not, I don't see photography as a science. I mean, I see it more as an art form. So I prefer being out and about, and serendipity is my framing, Chris. Like, you know, if something happens, Hopefully it happens in front of me with a camera. That's kind of more my composition. I don't actively, unless I'm doing client work. I mean, then I'm like, Chris, you look cute. Pose like this. And like it's a little bit different if I'm doing client work, but, my artistic or artisanal side of when I'm doing photography, whether it's travel photography or watch photography or whatever, I tend to just kind of let life be my grid lines in life, as it were, and let serendipity compose, and I just get the luxury of being there.
Excellent. Now we've got a series of videos, of very short videos that we're going to intersperse with the interview, as you know, and I just wanted to let the audience know that you shot and edited each of these videos, correct?
Yeah.
So these are all, you're looking at both AJ's his photography, you're also looking at his video composition, and you're looking at his editing skills when you're watching these videos, which he produced and then gave to us to use during this interview. So let's take a look at that first one.
Oh, hello everyone. I am AJ Barse. I am a Bellingham-based photographer, as well as a family man, a geek, amateur horologist, and a weekend adventurer. And really that makes up a lot of what I am and my photography is really all about. I was born and raised here in the Pacific Northwest, and the culture and vibe that this region brings is quintessentially me. And so the pieces that I have selected for this art walk are really reflective of who I am and really what I feel photography is about, and specifically the nounisms that I shoot. I like to use that word because I typically shoot people, places, and things, and especially if the things have a sweeping second hand, really it's much more than just watches. I love the study of time. And with photography, I really kind of feel like that's what we're really about, is we're the abilities to keep time and retell it and reshow it. So in this art walk, hopefully you see those essences within the pieces that I've selected, and I hope you enjoy. That's me.
That's some great stuff, and I also I know that one of the things that I've taken a look at since we've gone into a lot of remote work and a lot of Zoom is you've made some pretty great instructional videos on how to make yourself look fabulous from your home studio. And so I thought,
oh, shucks.
As we go into these things, I was really hoping that you would wear a slightly different shirt, because sometimes we don't know if you're live AJ or recorded AJ or just a simulation, that we might be looking at there.
Chris, it's all wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. It's all good.
It is. So when did you start doing photography? When were your earliest memories of taking photographs?
Good question. I would have probably been about 6, 7, 8-ish. The first photo that I remember taking myself on my onesies, during the summers, my family, growing up, I mean, I spent most of my summers in the backs of trucks and tents and camping and stuff. And, there was this one summer we were around, Mount Rainier, and, we got up early morning because, my dad always, would get me up at the crack of dawn for a lot of things. And, we were up at Hurricane Ridge. And anybody who's been up at either Hurricane Ridge or any mountaintop, if you get there early enough, sometimes you'll get kind of like a low pressure cell come in, and basically the clouds come in and you're above the cloud line. And I remember as a kid, like seeing that for the first time, you literally see our Cascade Mountains or our Olympic Mountains or wherever you're at, and you kind of see them just like hover. It literally looks like they're just mountain island in the sky. At least that's the story I told myself, in a 6, 7, 8-year-old adventurer's brain. And my dad went back to the truck and handed me this will date me a little bit, Chris, an old black Fujifilm 110 film camera, and handed it to me. It's like, hey son, why don't you take a picture? And I'm like, cool. And I have a little one. He's 4 now, and he grabs my camera all the time. And I must have done the same thing to my dad that my little one does to me. Cool. All right, I got dad's camera. Cool. How's it work? And of course my dad had to show me, the distinct sound of a, rack the film and, take the shot. I took that shot, and it was just peaks, I don't remember what the film stock was, probably, I don't know, ISO 400 film, Fujifilm Supra or whatever, and got it developed because this is the days of non-Insta anything, no Instagram, no. Had to go get it developed. So 3 days later, got my film, and I love that picture. At my elementary school, I put it into a school art show, and like I won an award for it. And I don't remember what I got, but I just remember that story that I just told you. Like I remember that process. That meant more to me than the whatever ribbon I got. And it kind of really set me off. Later, I had a high school teacher that really kind of groomed me towards the digital side of things, the mechanics of like how pixels work. And she really kind of set me off and influenced me to go into teaching and the digital arts and stuff, and haven't stopped since. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Now, of course, do you have a copy of that photo anywhere, that first photo?
I bet you my mom probably has it in a photo album because, it's film. But here in Bellingham, no, I don't have a copy of it, but I bet you my mom does. My mom keeps everything.
That's great. Now, here's another question. What was your second camera? Do you remember?
My second camera wouldn't have been until, oh man, so we had the Fujifilm camera for a long time until digital, 95, 98 was really booming. It was a Sony Mavica, and we took 3.5-inch floppies. You actually took photos on floppy disk. Right on. Oh man, it was like a whopping 2 megapixels, but man, it was legendary. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I think we're going to go. I like that your first photo was from up in the mountain peaks. I think we're going to take a look at this next video where you head off to your studio, so to speak.
Yeah.
We'll get that queued up and rolling here in just a sec. What do you remember in the 110? What was the format designation? Do you remember why it was called that 110? Because I forget.
Well, I think it was 35 millimeters full frame, and I think 110 was either half frame or close to it. It was a smaller film stock, if I recall. I don't use it anymore. If I do use film, I do use 35 millimeter. So I don't remember off the top of my head. Probably somebody in the chat's going like, "Oh, I'm a film aficionado. It meant this, you youngster." That's totally cool. I don't claim to know everything.
Right. That's great. Yeah, we're gonna go take a look at some of the things you shot from the top of some other mountains lately.
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to the Barse studio. Okay, I promise you it's a lot more thrilling than just a blue wall and 2 photos. It's even more than just a room in my house and a makeshift office because of COVID. Really, my studio is here, our evergreen playground. And it's this region that we live in that has shaped me as an individual as much as it's shaped me as an artist. And really from it, I take the perspectives of what this region has given me to anywhere I go, whether that is Europe or Japan or anywhere else. That is my studio. And so what I want to show you is more of what my studio is and how much it's impacted me as much as I go out and do photography in it. So, welcome to my studio. Remember when I said I was a geek? Well, much like any geek or anybody from the Pacific Northwest, my creative process doesn't really start unless I have a solid cup of coffee. While that's perking, I think about the day ahead and what kits I need to have with me. Usually the first piece of equipment I'll reach for in the morning is going to be what watch is going to be on my wrist, and that's just for sentimentality as well as functionality. The next bit of kit is the bag that I have with me. Usually there's a bag that's packed by the door, and in it is going to be my normal bits and bobs that I take with me. But the day of, I think about where I'm going and what I am intending to shoot, and that's usually when I'll pack the last bits of camera equipment. And with that bag and a solid cap on my head if I'm in the mountains, I feel like I can go anywhere and really shoot anything. With caffeination and kit, heading out to the studio is a pleasure, whether that be smooth roads and 2-wheel drive, or more likely kicking it into 4-wheel drive to getting to those destinations that are a little harder to reach. And that's why I love this region. The Cascadian region makes an interesting home and studio. As an artist, I can draw on different elements of nature, seeing the sun rise on the mountain and sun set across the Salish Sea, all in the same day. And growing up in this region, being of this culture where the mountains are your back door and the sea is your front door, it's really given me a perspective as an artist that there really is no such thing as a bad day of shooting here. Kind of like the nature that surrounds this region, you kind of get changed every day, just a little bit. And so does my photography. And as an artist, that is always time well spent.
So I liked right at the end there, the last scroll across the bottom had your website, ajbarse.com. And there are a lot of really amazing photographs that you've taken that we can find there. And have you always had such a great eye? I mean, do you feel like it was a natural thing or something that you developed with a lot of sweat and hard work?
Yeah, probably more the latter. No, like, I mean, as you've kind of gathered from me, I kind of, as much as I'm a photographer, I also, I can do video and I can do the visual side of things. I'm more of a visual storyteller. It's just, photography happens to be a tool for me to do it. I just like any other artist, like you kind of find your own language, like as you're working with your medium. And, as you speak the language a little bit more, you get a little bit more fluent, a little bit more of the nuances, you get the really cool phrases that only the locals know how to say. And that's kind of how I feel like my style has evolved. I mean, Chris, if I were to get that photo of when I was 6 and compare it to when I was stuck on the top of, say, Winchester, vastly different, not because of the technology, but just because, height, like age, experience, how I see things, that greatly influences how I capture. So.
What's a good way of thinking about, let's say, when we think about these different, I don't know, milestones when you realize that, maybe you weren't as much of a student and you were more of a career person and then a family person and things like that. Have those shifts felt different in how you view things, or did you ever kind of look back at a certain point and go, I feel like I'm looking at this differently than I used to, or I achieved something in terms of like getting those feelings that you talked about earlier, that whole vibe? Like, do you kind of every now and then look and go, what, I think I've gotten to a different place than I was?
I would say so. I mean, especially because for a little bit I was a journalist, and so shooting journalistically is a little bit different than doing something a little bit more in the fine arts. And I guess the biggest difference, because you said like professionally, in a career, when you're forced, you have to, under deadline, to create content. That is a vastly different mindset to create than, me packing up and heading to the studio, and both are good. Like I needed both experiences to really get to me where I'm at today. But, do I look back at my photos and say like, was I looking at this differently? I wouldn't say I'm not capturing it any differently, but I'm just, I was developing it for a different reason. Most of the photography I do now is because it's more in the vein of my own production as opposed to producing it for deadline, for publication, or et cetera. So just really the output.
Excellent. We've got a great video that you supplied for us about the creation of a particular picture, and we're going to take a look at that video right now and see just a little story about a really fabulous shot that you took and how that came to be.
Welcome back, everyone. So this first piece I wanted to lead off is probably one of my favorite pieces. It is a kiss that my wife and I shared while we were on our travels in Europe. This was quite a few years back, before we had a little, and it was in Paris. So Paris, any photographer will tell you, everybody loves Paris for a multitude of reasons. It truly is the city of light. But for me, there was also one other aspect of it, the city of time. And again, here's where that watches and horology aspect of me comes in. See, there is the Musée d'Orsay, and at the Musée, you as you go further and further up, you get actually behind the old clock towers of the train station that the Musée used to be. And so I had in my mind that I wanted to sneak a kiss with my wife in front of this clock tower, without drawing attention or drawing attention of museum guards, or have my stuff stolen. So it took a little bit of finagling to be able to pull this off, but this was the result of it, and by far it's probably one of my most favorite pieces, and hangs in my own hallway in my home. So hopefully you enjoy it, and that's a little bit of the behind the scenes look of how I stole a kiss in time.
That's great. That's great. I love seeing that one. So you've done a fair amount of traveling. Seem like you like to travel, and I know you've been getting, out into the mountains, but we've got a pandemic on, right? That's really affected our ability to get out and about. And how have you been responding to that in terms of your photography? Is it something that's affected the way you're working or what you're thinking about working on or anything?
Not as much as I thought it was going to be. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I could get on a plane and see some of my peeps over in Europe, I would do it in a heartbeat. But no, it's funny because like the pandemic for me has kind of been a mixed blessing. I would phrase it as being no longer a new dad. I mean, my son just turned 4. The last 6 months has been kind of a blessing in disguise because I've been able to work remotely. So I've been at home. And so for the last 6 months, I've been able to experience like these milestones that if I was doing the 9 to 5 during the day, I would have missed it. And some of them I was able to capture. So like the travel aspect, I don't have to go far to quote travel. It's all kind of just perspective to me. But yeah, being able to work in tight quarters is also, it stretches me a little bit artistically. Like, you may remember like about, I don't know, decade and a half ago, a lot of creators were doing 365s, where they would be forcing themselves to create content, a photo or a video once a day for a year. I never really fell into that. Like, again, like if I'm going to do it, it's because career dictates I must create. I didn't, and in this pandemic, I've kind of felt like I've been quasi doing a 365 where I always have a camera with me. It's not like I'm going anywhere anytime soon. And I've been able to capture the little moments. And these are things that, are more important to me. And, capturing the story of my son at this time, no pun intended, capturing my son at this time and, remembering those stories with him. And I just so happened to also have, at the beginning of the pandemic, my wife got me a brand new watch that's bronze. So watching it patina and matching it with all of these different stories and memories that I'll have during this time, there's a lot of opportunity as an artist to work within a constraint. The pandemic has just been one huge pain in the side constraint. Right. But I work with it, and it stretches me.
Yeah. Do you? We have a question from some of our audience. They were curious about who some of your photographic heroes are. Is it Ansel Adams, Andy Warhol, Man Ray, Nan Goldin? Anybody that's like kind of a standout that you look to for your particular inspiration?
Oh man! So if because some of my idols are actually still living, so I have some more contemporary folks. Yes, Ansel Adams, hands down. He did an interview in his later part of his career about visualization that I would encourage anybody. I used to use it in one of the classes I taught for the summer programs for Western. But Ansel Adams's methodology and really looking at Ansel's work, he actually proves like it doesn't really matter what the camera equipment is to create a genuinely epic proportion of a photo. Here's a guy that's literally taking slabs of glass on his back with wooden equipment up Half Dome. Like we have no complaints about, oh, my phone is too big or it has a notch or whatever. Right. But no, I would say Ansel Adams, is even some more contemporary folks. Carlo Rossini, who's an Italian photographer. I followed his early works. Trey Radcliffe out of New Zealand, of course. Matthew Stern, who's a French photographer and deals a lot with using vintage lenses on more contemporary bodies, which is something I also do. Those are Matthias Berling, which is He has one of the coolest French bulldogs on the internet. Just saying. Um, yeah, but I follow a lot of different people, and I kind
That's
of, I'm inspired by lots of different people,
now
past, present, future.
you mentioned right at the beginning of that there about Ansel Adams lugging that wooden
Yeah.
stuff up Half Dome, and so we're going to go to a video of you lugging your stuff up to the top of a mountain. It's maybe not as heavy, but you'd only
Nah.
be the one to know for sure. So we're going to see what that looks like, circa the 21st century.
In this next piece, I wanted to showcase something that's actually from my childhood that kind of revisited me when in my adulthood. Growing up here in the Pacific Northwest, being in the outdoors and being a kid of the outdoors is like saying you like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches as a child. Like growing up in the mountains or on a lake was just a normal thing for me. And so growing up and now being a dad of my own and having a little one, there's a story that I like to share with this piece, and that is the mountain twitter. Whenever you're up in the mountains, there's these really, especially here in the Northwest, there's this really cool bird called the Canadian jay or a snow jay. It has a lot of different names. And I remember as a kid, my dad introducing me to this bird. And it was kind of one of the first moments where my dad kind of taught me to be a little bit patient, a little bit quiet, a little bit slower. And maybe, just maybe, it might come over and say hi. And so coming back from a shoot, actually, one winter, I noticed up in the treetops a couple of flitters, and I heard some feathers. And so I just wondered. So I got to a clearing and put my kit down for a second and kind of extended my hand to see if a bird would come down. And lo and behold, he did. So this was that moment where an old friend of mine, as I like to say, came down and delivered a little tweet from the mountain just to say hi.
That's a great story, and I think I'm going to use that one as a segue into, we have a question here, which is, with
Yeah.
glass plates and wooden and brass tripods, you can't capture that kind of moment. So the question we have is, do you have a favorite photography type gadget? So not
Gadget.
necessarily a camera, but a photography type gadget. So that's a pretty broad.
Probably it would have to be. I mean, it would have to be a bag. Like that's the thing is, I am a little bit a bag nut because I got to get my gear to and fro. There's a bag for everything. I have, some people do shoes. I do bags. Okay, I've got backpacks. I've got slings. I've got satchels. Because like I said, to Chase Jarvis, another photographer based out of Seattle, he's often quoted with the quote, "The best camera you can ever have is the one that you have with you." So, to have all of this photographic equipment and not use it, that's a travesty, So for me, I guess if it's not a camera itself, I would have to say the bag that I stick it in.
Excellent.
That's my gadget.
And given that we've got a lot of different options now, when we both started, I used to photo, and you take your filters or whatever with you. Do you have a preference now, given all the techniques available for post-processing, filters, or just shooting all natural?
All the above. So it just depends. So for me, when it comes to filters, not to get too instructional technologist, I don't. Filters are basically giving an effect to a photo. Okay. There is a way to do it in various apps. You can do it through presets if you're in Lightroom or other apps like that. There's also another way in the media sphere that you can use LUTs, lookup tables. And what LUTs are, basically, it takes the pixels and replicates it based off of a simulation of an effect that is seen in film. So for instance, you can emulate Triax, you can emulate Portra 100. And so I tend to use LUTs to kind of, because I know what those film stocks look like, to kind of bring that warmth and more organicness that digital photography often is attributed of losing. But no, I edit because again, I'm trying to give that vibe of whatever that scene is. It just all depends on what the piece is, honestly.
Yeah. Now, have you ever managed to get a picture of the Northern Lights?
Okay. No, the 1 year. So you remember a couple years back, right? We were supposed to get the Northern Lights, and dude, I was like one of everybody else that was packed up at Artist Point, in the back of my truck, and I was waiting for it, waiting for it. I went up to the Table Mountain, waited for it, and it was one of those, super warm nights. Like I swear, Chris, like it was probably. Yeah, in 2 a.m, it was still probably 60 degrees up there. It was bonkers that summer. And I'm up there waiting, tripod up there, coffee, 3 a.m., nothing, 4 a.m., nothing. It never came. We missed it. So I've been on the hunt, and I even without the photograph of the Northern Lights, I can tell you the story. Like again, like I a lot of this it's just storytelling. I just I never have shot it, but I have seen it before, but I've never shot it. No.
Now you have the work that I've seen and the work that we've seen in the videos there is a lot of sense of grandeur, even in the intimate picture of the birds, right? There's this grandeur of this, the simple moment and this kind of austerity to the quietness and the stillness in the photo. But those of us who know, that you have a fabulous and very lively sense of humor. Do you feel like there is a place where your humor comes across in your work, or a certain kind of work where that humor, is it part of your photography to think about that sense of humor that you have?
Oh, this is 100% USDA organic right here. Okay, this is non-filtered, non-touched up. No, so I would say in the final output of the photo, nobody would probably see my humor because I'm a gregarious knucklehead with a microphone, yo. So I guess where my personality comes out is usually when I'm doing client work, whether I'm working with an engagement couple or senior portraits or working event. The thing about being a photographer is you could be the best person with a camera, but if you don't know how to work with people and open them up, your job as a photographer is a lot harder. So being a professional goober helps. Okay, so any of my clients, I just be me, and that opens them up and opens up opportunities for me to have a shutter click here and there. So
that's great. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time, and I want to make sure we see this last wonderful video that you made for us. So we're just, bluntly segueing into that.
So pulling from another page of my childhood, anybody who grows up in the Pacific Northwest knows that summers are about adventuring, road tripping, sleeping in the backs of trucks or in tents. And that was my childhood as well. And so the last hurrah for summer for me and my family, we used to be going to the ocean. And so for me, the one place that I can still smell the salt in the air and the heat on the back of my neck is Cape Disappointment. And at Cape Disappointment, there's the North Head Lighthouse. This lighthouse used to be a red-capped sailor back in my day, but now, after almost 2 centuries of use, it's a little bit weary. So recently, the National Parks was able to restore it, and it's now a black-hatted sailor. But nonetheless, very recently, I was able to go, as they were finishing up the restoration, and shoot some photos of this lighthouse, and also bring my son to it for the first time. And coming back to it is always like, it just takes me back to my summer childhood. And when I was there, there happened to be finally some tours, and it looked like there was either a park service agent, or in my mind, I keep daydreaming that it's a lighthouse tender. And as you can tell, they're up at the top and surveying not maybe just the horizon, but also the lighthouse itself. And so I was able to capture this as I was kind of tooling about my old stomping grounds.
That's terrific. I think I saw, to me at least, a little bit of humor in the toes. There were quite a few toes there. It made me smile, so I'll chalk that one up for humor. Let's see. I know after this, people are really going to want to see more of your work, and is the best place to do it ajbarse.com? And go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, ajbarse.com. That's my main website where pretty much my life is there. I'm on Instagram at ajbarse, and I've been on Patreon since its inception. So you can also become a Patreon supporter, patreon.com/ajbarse. That's kind of my 3 houses.
Excellent. And for folks who are starting out, what
Mhm.
would be your best advice for someone who wants to you know, feel successful and enjoy taking some photography?
Well, two things. One, don't worry about the kit. I don't care if it's a film camera. I don't care if it's a camera I commonly use is 5 years old. It's not the latest greatest. Just go out and be present. That's the biggest thing. About a year-ish ago, I made my first publication, self-promoted publication called the Analog Explorer. And on paper, I put what I call my analog manifesto, where to kind of break this norm that we're seeing in photography and in society in general, where when we go out or we travel, we experience life like this a lot. Get your head up a little bit. Don't live life looking down or thinking about taking a photo because of a hashtag or do photography for you first and foremost and using whatever you feel comfortable with. The second thing I would say is get it in print. I don't care if you get just a little photo or if you make a book at the end of the year, but as a technologist, I'm genuinely concerned about we live in the most documented age in the history of humankind. But you never really see many photos out anymore, and a lot of my family heritage and history was passed down to me through looking at old photos and hearing the old stories. So just start printing your photos and getting them off of just pixels or putting them up on a drive, or on a social media network. That's all waning, but print, that is the one way where you can improve, yourself as a photographer is spending the money to print, just like developing film back in the day, like you had to spend the $20 to go get it developed,
Right, right. There was we have a live question. It's a little thoughtful, right, for the
Mhm.
end. But have you ever captured something that was a particularly sad or somber moment?
Um, well, I guess I even with sad and somber moments, I guess not directly. I would say some of my photography, I guess, see, I'm just too upbeat, Chris.
Right,
I just can't be
right.
like dwell. I
Yeah.
forgot to brood. No, so there was a shoot that I did for a client, and it was like a 50th wedding anniversary. Very old couple, and in all of that time, they never had a photo of themselves married,
Mm,
kiss, with a kiss, and so I literally captured their first kiss on film, as it were.
right.
And it would be later, about a year later, one of that couple died. And so, it's, I don't know. I guess that's the most somber thing I can think of is that, cool and uplifting the fact that I was able to capture that moment
Right.
before one pit passed. But, for me, it's sad that was it. That's the only one that you're going to get,
Well, I
so.
think it comes back to this idea of the somberness or the sadness there's of your sense that you bring and your personal interest in time and the passage of time and capturing a moment.
Yeah.
Because in any particular moment, right, there's a sense of being moved, there's this sense of what gets to our eye and that vibe that you're trying to capture, which in the future may feel nostalgic, it may feel inspiring, it may bring a kind of a warmth to a person, and sometimes there's sadness mingled with that, and a lot of so much of that has to do with our shifting perspective over time. So when the picture is
Yeah.
taken, and then again, like when you said, if we print it in a book at the end of a year and you come back a few years later and look at that book, the way those moments are there and we remember how we feel then, but then our
Mhm.
feelings also can be different at the next time that we look at it. So I think that that idea of whether it's sad or somber, it's this kind of moving, changing thing, right? Like light, it's never quite sitting still. So yeah,
And nor
thanks
am I
for
with enough coffee. I never sit still.
the rest of us probably look like we're moving in slow motion though, well, thank you so much for coming to talk with us today. I know everybody really enjoyed it, and I do hope that all of you who are here really take a chance, and if you haven't really yet, go over to ajbarse.com and look at that, or check him out on Instagram. Thanks, AJ.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yes. Thank you so much, AJ. That was absolutely wonderful. It was amazing and an inspirational tour of your work. And Chris, thank you for your good questions. And thanks to you, our audience, for your ongoing interest in and support of Western Washington University. I hope you found today's talk informative and inspiring. And we hope to see you at our next virtual artist studio tour on Friday, November 13th. Stay safe and go Vikings.